So the Daily Mail decided to run with a headline, and they honestly thought they had something over Meghan, as they usually do. But unfortunately, they actually exposed their own, again, stupidity. And I keep saying this, why are they lacking in even basic journalistic sense? Okay, what do I mean? So this particular piece, I think it has a very rare journalistic achievement of producing a gotcha that actually proves the opposite of what they intended. So in 2016, Meghan appeared at the Creative and Cultivate conference in Atlanta. I love that. You know why I love that? They are proving that our girl has been speaking at conferences way before she joined that family. Now, she was at the conference to promote the TIG, her lifestyle blog. And she said that there are no $100 candles on my site because that would be so obnoxious. She described her ethos as aspirational girl next door. Things you can aspire to buy, but things you can actually attain, right? So
the more I look at this latest attempt to create a scandal around Meghan Markle, the more convinced I become that some sections of the media simply cannot help themselves. Every few weeks there seems to be a new headline claiming they have finally caught Meghan out, a new gotcha moment, a new controversy, a new reason why we should all supposedly be outraged. And yet, when you actually read beyond the headline, the entire argument falls apart. This time the focus was Meghan's candle business through as ever. The claim was that Meghan had somehow contradicted herself because back in 2016, during an appearance at the Creative and Cultivate conference in Atlanta, she spoke about luxury products and said there were no $100 candles on her lifestyle blog, The TIG, because she considered that price point obnoxious. The article tried to frame this as evidence that Meghan has become the very thing she once criticized. The problem: the facts don't support that conclusion. Let's start with what the article itself revealed. Meghan's as ever signature candle sells for $64. Not $100. Not $150. Not $200. $64. That means the very example being used to accuse her of hypocrisy actually falls well below the threshold she identified years ago. Think about that for a moment. The entire argument depends on Meghan selling candles above the price point she once criticized. But she isn't. The supposed contradiction simply doesn't exist. In fact, if anything, the story confirms that Meghan has remained remarkably consistent in her approach to lifestyle products. Back in 2016, she talked about creating aspirational products that people could realistically afford. Today, she is selling products that fit exactly into that category. That is not hypocrisy. That is consistency. What I find fascinating is that the story accidentally highlights something Meghan's supporters have been saying for years. Long before she became the Duchess of Sussex, Meghan was building a lifestyle brand. Long before royal life. Long before Netflix. Long before podcasts. Long before as ever. She was building the TIG. She was speaking at conferences. She was developing her own voice. She was creating communities online. She was establishing herself as a businesswoman and entrepreneur. The coverage almost seems to forget that Meghan had a successful career before she ever met Prince Harry. Yet this article inadvertently reminds everyone of exactly that. It reminds people that Meghan's interest in lifestyle content did not suddenly appear after she left royal life. It was already there. It was part of her professional identity years before she entered the royal family. What we are seeing now is not some sudden reinvention. It is the continuation of a journey that was temporarily paused. When Meghan joined the royal family, the TIG was shut down. Projects were put aside. Business ambitions were placed on hold. That chapter of her life was effectively closed. Years later, after stepping away from royal duties, she returned to a space she already understood and had already spent years building. That is why As Ever feels like such a natural extension of the TIG. It isn't a random business idea. It is the evolution of something that already existed. And let's talk about another important point. The article focused heavily on prices, but completely ignored the reality of inflation and changing costs over the last decade. The world of 2016 is not the world of today. Manufacturing costs have increased. Packaging costs have increased. Shipping costs have increased. Labor costs have increased. Virtually every consumer product category has experienced rising costs. Yet despite all of that, Meghan's candle is still priced below the threshold she referenced years ago. That makes the criticism even harder to understand. If anything, it demonstrates that she has stayed within the philosophy she originally described. Another thing that stood out to me was how this story unintentionally highlights Meghan's long-standing appeal. Before royal life, Meghan built a substantial online following through her own work. People connected with her voice. People connected with her recommendations. People connected with her perspective. That audience existed because of who Meghan was, not because of a royal title. And that's an important distinction. For years, critics have tried to portray Meghan's success as entirely dependent on her royal connection. But stories like this remind us that she was already creating content, building communities, and developing a brand before any royal relationship entered the picture. The reality is that Meghan has always understood audience engagement. She understood it as an actress. She understood it as a blogger. She understood it as a public speaker. And she understands it today as a businesswoman. So when I see headlines attempting to manufacture outrage over a $64 candle, I can't help but think the bigger story is being missed. The bigger story is that Meghan had a vision years ago. A vision for lifestyle content. A vision for products. A vision for building a brand. And despite everything that happened in between, she has returned to that vision and continued building it. That doesn't sound like failure. That sounds like persistence. It sounds like someone who knew what she wanted long before the world became obsessed with every move she made. The irony is that the article intended to expose Meghan. Instead, it reminded everyone that she was an entrepreneur long before royal life and remains one today. And perhaps that's why these so-called gotcha stories keep backfiring. Because the facts often tell a very different story from the headline. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think this was a genuine controversy, or was it another example of a headline creating outrage where none really exists? I'd love to hear your perspective.